This show is sponsored by Den 10 Insurance Services, helping businesses get the right insurance for all their insurance needs. Visit den10.io to get a quote. DENTEN.io. And remember, when you buy an insurance policy from Den 10, you're giving back on a global scale. Hello, all my entrepreneurs and business leaders, and welcome to the Michael Esposito Show, where I interview titans of industry in order to inform, educate, and inspire you to be great. My guest today says, the more you step into your own energy and your own creativity, the more you will realize you are not crazy in what you think is important, valuable, and impactful. Everything else is just fluff. She graduated from Fordham University with a BA in philosophy. In other words, she spent 4 years learning how to ask questions, deeply analyze problems, and write cognate proposals. Cogent. It is cogent proposals that provide optimal solutions. She then graduated from Coach U in 2021 and is certified with the International Coaching Federation. She is also a program advisor of the Seton Hall University Transformative Leadership Program, where she continues to both learn and impact educational offerings to today's rising leaders. She loves coaching and uses much of her free time to explore courses, seminars, and workshops to further her craft. She loves a good cheese board and looks forward to making pizza with her husband every Friday night. Please welcome founder of Find Clarity Here, Nicole Dupuis. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for helping me with that word cogent. I'm like, wait a second.
Well, it took me a second. I'm like, what word was it?
What was the word in my bio that I put in there to throw people off?
Yes. Well, the first assignment I ever got in college had that word in it. And I remember like, oh, boy, here we go. Like I'm already looking words up and this is day one of freshman year. Like what's going to happen? So now I like that word will always mean something.
and so is our audience and myself. So share with us what cogent means.
So it's like a persuasive argument. So, you know, if you're trying to sway someone, is what you're saying cogent? Is it clear? Does it make sense? Is it does it have supported evidence? So I think the context was a cogent argument. So am I just making stuff up or do I really have like a case here?
That's an interesting one to bring up, like right from the start with us, right? With this word.
Diving in.
We're diving right in because, you know, you're a coach and I've entered the world of coaching and yay. I'm
clapping if no one can see.
Yes, we are air clapping with each other. We're both excited about this. I remember my coach actually said to me, which you got the opportunity to finally meet, Merritt. She said, you know, one day, she's like, you're going to get the bug, Michael, and the bug has bitten. But what I realized with coaching is that we speak a lot about a lot of different ideas, principles, frameworks. And they do need a cogent argument, right? They need to have supporting information behind them. And so I like that we start right off with this. And for you have this background in philosophy, which brings that into the whole thing. Is like when I think about coaching, when I think about inspiring people and self-development, philosophy has so much to do with it. And I'm interested on how that background has impacted you in your career today.
Yeah. So I can overanalyze anything.
Yes.
Like my top skill. So if any client's looking for a partner in that, I'm happy to. But I think it's like to build off of what you were saying about like a cogent argument. Like we carry around all these like perspectives on ourselves, on others, like I'm not enough, or I'm not going to do well in this role or whatever it is. And a lot of times the role of a coach is, so what makes you say that? Like create a cogent argument for me. Tell me why you're thinking that way. And a lot of times there's nothing there, you know, it's just kind of the narrative we tell ourselves. We had like one experience, we had one bad boss, one bad meeting, one bad presentation, and we've just created our whole identity, especially in the professional world, around that one instance. So I think the philosophy piece is asking the questions and figuring out, okay, where is there really meat, and where actually is, once you tap at it, it's going to break. There's actually nothing there to hold that, opinion up.
What got you into the field of philosophy? What was interesting about that for you?
This is hysterical because both my parents were philosophy majors in college. And so, I mean, we always had these like big books, like, you see in a movie, like Dusted Spines and whatever. And I was like, what were you guys thinking? Like, I can't even read the title. I don't know what this is saying. And then in college, like, you're supposed to pick your major around sophomore year. You had to take 2 philosophy courses at Fordham. So I took one and I was like, I don't hate this. This is kind of interesting. Like, I like that. I like writing. It's a lot of writing. So I liked it. Took the second class. Kind of like this. And then it was time to pick a major. And there was like I think they called it like a major fair, where every subject had a table and you went and you actually just physically signed a piece of paper saying, this is my declared major. And I was thinking, I think my plan was sociology, and long line for sociology, like out the door of the gymnasium line. And I was in line and I'm looking at the philosophy table. No one's there. And it's this like old philosophy professor sitting behind the table, like, and I'm just looking at him, looking at the line, and I'm like, roadless travels. Like, Nicole, you got to do this. Like, there's no, philosophy is a very like male dominated area of study. So I remember being in line and I'm like, nope. And I left the line and I went over and I was like, hi. And he was probably like, why is this woman like so beaming right now? And that's what brought me there. And I never looked back. I loved it. I still read philosophy to this day. I think it's fascinating.
That's funny. I'm laughing to myself because I'm just imagining myself on a long line and looking at a shorter line and being like, I think I'm just going to go with the shorter line. Like, I don't know what's over there, but it's just shorter, and I'm going to get out of here a lot faster.
Yes.
So it's interesting, like, and it's like serendipitous, right? Because of sort of this like long line and you seeing this, and there was this connection that happened between you and this professor. It kind of led to this whole backdrop to your career, which is really cool. You said you still study philosophy and enjoy it. Who are some of your favorite philosophers? What are some of the practices that they teach?
Oh man. So I've recently, I know it's like a buzz area, but like Stoicism.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't really get a chance that wasn't much of an area of study when I was in college. So I've been reading books about that. I'm blanking on the name of the most recent one I read, but that's been fascinating just because it's like a different perspective. My mom will be so proud. Sartre is a French philosopher in existentialism, and he wrote, and I don't know if this was a thing, but a lot of philosophers wrote fiction and nonfiction, and they wrote like things like plays and stuff like that. So I've actually read more recently like the fiction, because like with a philosopher writing fiction, like, there's like deep down, like dark themes and, stuff like that. So more recently, things like that have been fun.
I love philosophy. Like, as you're telling me some of this stuff, I'm like, I'm beaming on my end. I wish I learned about philosophy when I was in college. I went for the short lines as quickly as possible. And then I was also very curious about myself, which probably is why the whole coaching thing with me. And so I took a lot of psychology courses to try to understand, like, why am I like this? and who else is like me? But now more recently, it's funny that you say it's more of a buzz kind of one, which is Stoicism. I find that interesting just because the way that it came about to me was it was introduced to me by a Toastmaster who's an older woman, and she's been studying Stoicism for so many years. And she introduced me to some Stoicism, to somebody's newsletter. You probably know who he is, the Daily Stoic.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yes, I think that's must have been the book I read. Was
Ryan something, yeah.
Yes.
And I read his newsletter, and then I started learning more about Stoicism and Marcus Aurelius and all the different Stoics, and I really started understanding philosophy, and I started using it as like a term of like my philosophy is like I coach basketball now, and I coach my third graders, my daughter's in third grade, so it's her team, right?
Wow.
And I write emails to the parents all the time, like, oh, this is what the girls are doing, this is what we're practicing, this is what we're excited about, and right now we're on a 2-game losing streak. And so I emailed the parents after the game. I said they had a great game, and then I said my philosophy is we're going to focus on the strengths and not the. I'm like my philosophy, and they're probably reading this going like, what does this guy think he is? Marcus Aurelius writing this email to us.
I love it though.
But yeah, so I mean, it kind of bleeds into our daily lives. But yeah, so it got me when I started reading the Daily Stoic and started learning more, and I read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius and several other blurbs in the Stoic world and YouTube videos. I got more interested in these different philosophies and philosophers. Mm-hmm. And when you're bringing up this one of Sartre, you said. Mm-hmm. And the fiction and nonfiction, what I'm interested in this, if you could share a little bit more about the nonfiction side to it, is I have this idea in my mind of creating a like one-man show for when I do my communication keynotes and things of that nature, like the different type of self-development keynotes that I do. Mm-hmm. I want it to be more of like a musical one-man show fun thing. And I feel like, of course, the real stories will be in there, but I feel like there's a funner way, a more exciting way to bring it out through fiction. So I'm interested in what you got from this philosopher and the nonfiction that you're reading.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That would be I want my ticket when those tickets go on sale for that. Yeah, I mean, it's like one of those things. So the thing that's coming to mind is Sartre has a play, No Exit, and it's probably one of his most popular plays. And and I'm going to butcher this because it has been a minute. And I actually saw the play. They did a version of that in New York. And basically like all these people, and you've probably seen like different versions actually of this storyline. These different people like show up in a room. I feel like this was a Twilight Zone episode too. People show up in this room and they can't leave. And they're all kind of trying to figure out like, why are they there? Do they know each other? And why can't they leave? And spoiler alert, but it might not be because I'm trying to remember the ending. I think they're all in hell. And they've like died, and they actually figure out like they're in this place together, and this is hell. Again, don't hold me to that, but it's like one of those things where like you're watching the play, and it's like it's a play, so you're like enjoying it and characters and whatever. But then you get up to leave, and it's like and this is going to sound weird, but like heavier in a good way. Like you've just kind of like, you're carrying it with you. Mm. Like I love horror movies. And like, for me, the sign of a good horror movie is like you leave and you have to like check the rooms and make sure the door is locked, because like that is staying with you. And I think the same with like fiction that has that deeper meaning is it's going to change a little bit of like maybe not how you live your life, but how you live your life that day, or like how you interact with the person you're having dinner with afterwards. And I think that's philosophy. Like you're examining how you live, and, if they can get that across in things like a play or a short story, more power to them.
Yeah. The deeper meaning is what I'm looking for too, is really when I think about, like, even like watching a movie, like the nonfiction that we're talking about, like even watching a movie or a stand-up, it's like, for me, I watch a lot of stand-up.
Me
like,
too.
yeah, right. It's like, what are you getting at here? What's the underlying? Because we know they do, right? Especially the smart ones.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
they're so incredible. I've been watching a lot of them lately. It's part of my not going on social media
I love it.
so it's funny, right? Like you were telling me about checking out some Instagram and some recipes, and I love that. Like they look so delicious. Like I wish I could cook some of those things.
Yes. Yes.
But for me, it's been stand up, and so I would love for you to share some of your stand up stories. But I'll start you off here with Trevor Noah and watching his stand up. And how he was talking about his trip to Germany and how they're so proud of their culture and they're so proud of their history. And he's at this airport, and spoiler alert, everyone! If you haven't seen the Netflix special of Trevor Noah yet, watch it before you pause this and go watch it. And he's. And he's in Germany, and they go to the biggest airport, and the tour guide is sharing how this is the biggest airport, something like maybe in the world, and it's like so big. The Hunger Games were filmed there, and it's just they're so incredibly proud of this, and of course he raises his hand and he says, who built it? well, we kind of all know the answer to that, so I'll let the special address that question. But what he shares is that, they say, obviously it was part of Hitler's plan to build this airport, and it was built, and it was used for obviously terrible reasons initially, but it's been converted to what it is today. And he goes on to talk about Germany and how they are still proud of everything that they have, but they also realize what their history is, and they acknowledge that history, and that they teach their young next generation in this is our history, and that's why you need to be better, and how can you be better, and how can you better yourself. And he talks about that, and then he brings it back in a very subtle way to the U.S. and some of the cultural challenges that we're experiencing today, and some of the societal challenges that we're experiencing today, and political challenges. And he just ties it back in such a way that I don't even think the audience really picked it up right away until he touched on a certain point, a hot point that I'm not going to go there right now for our topic, but until he hit that hot point, and that's when you really are like, oh yeah, no, that's definitely why he was bringing up that Germany story. But I pay attention. I love that kind of stuff, right? Do you have like a favorite that you've experienced that with?
Yeah, I mean, it's so like the skill. Like sometimes, like I'll watch a stand-up comedy special, and I'm almost embarrassed at how much I'm like they're a philosopher. Like they like run for president. Like they're making these points that I'm just like they're so right. And I'm like, wait, they're a comedian, but like you're right. They really. They use humor to tie in these like big concepts. I can't remember her name, but female comedian, blonde, definitely in her 30s, because she talks a lot about being a millennial, and I am also a millennial. She's had a few specials, and she like her points are always like women related and like feminist related, and it will just be so funny how she's like telling this story. First it was like her dating stories, and I think now she might be married or at least in a serious relationship, so now it's more on that, but she'll go on this like whole story about that experience, and then it brings back to this point about like culture and how women are viewed and how women are seen in relationships and how women are seen after a certain age, and you're just like, ooh, like, and the other thing with stand-up comedy is like the delivery. So she's really good at like, and this is going to sound weird, but like speaking really fast, like just getting all the words out in like one quick second. So it's almost like, wait, what did she just say? Oh man, like there's like a pause in the audience, and then all of a sudden like laughter and clapping, because it hits you in a different way. I'm going to have to look up who this is.
Nikki Glacier, Amy Schumer. Those are my two blondes that I could think of.
It might be, it's not Nikki Glacier, but I feel like they're like,
in that
they
area,
have been on specials together.
And
yeah.
Feemster. I'm trying to think of her name. Something Feemster. I can't think of her first name, but
I'm literally typing funny blonde stand-up comedian.
What's coming up? Is Claire coming?
Oh, here we go. Eliza Schlesinger.
Elijah Schlesinger sounds familiar.
I'm trying to get her image so I can show you. Well, that doesn't come up at all.
Well, you'll find her.
She's got a few specials on there, but she's hysterical.
Well, and what we're talking about here is about the reason why I bring this up and why we're talking about this is I feel like in stand up and in these fictions that we were talking about, these plays, there's this deep rooted philosophy, and you kind of brought it up before, right? There's like you brought it up with the philosopher Sartre and how he was doing this, and I feel like the people that I'm drawn to in watching and experiencing in movies that I'm drawn to is the ones that have that deep underlying meaning, that while on the surface everybody walks out of the movie or the stand-up and say they were hysterical, that joke about Germany was so funny, I walk out and I'm like, did you hear what he said about the U.S. and how and why we're so divided, why we have so many issues, right? Did you hear? And it's like, no, that's not what it was about. Or I remember I had this conversation with someone about Avatar, and it was like, oh yeah, it was this, it was so beautiful, and the love story, and I'm like, did you realize like what it really is about? Like, and that's the philosophy that we're talking about, right? Like philosophy is in everything, and I think that's what's so cool about it is that it's a part of like everything. And now back to maybe self-development here, because that's what, the business that you and I are in, is how the more I've learned, like, so I started my self-development journey with Tony Robbins, and I've gone through so many different mentors along the way, Simon Sinek and all the rest. And now I'm in Brennan Burchard's community of Growth Day. And during this kind of like phase in my life, and now tying it to the Stoicism and me reading on these philosophy, I'm learning that a lot of what I've learned with Tony Robbins and Simon Sinek and Brennan Burchard, it all goes back to the Stoics. It all goes back to philosophy. Like that's the root. It's incredible, right?
I mean, it's how you live. So like we try to like, even like in coaching, it's, I'm a productivity and leadership coach. And then there are like relationship coaches and like all these specific niches. And there is some like legitimacy to that 100%. But at the core of it, it's how you live your life. And if it's, in your professional life, yes, but like how you do one thing, you do all. If you're showing up stressed at work, I'm going to guess when you get home, you're also stressed. It doesn't, there are no lines there. So yeah, it's like, how are you just showing up, period, full stop, versus how you show up in a meeting versus with your boss versus with your kids versus when you wake up in the morning.
So you just touched on something that I know that most of our listeners right now, anybody who's listening right now is going, okay, you just said work and life. And how do I, everybody talks about, you talk about buzzwords, right? Everybody talks about harmony between work and life, or work. No, it's work-life balance, right? Like that's the big buzzword, is work-life balance. And I'm sure, whoever's listening right now, you are listening right now, is wondering, and I'll ask her for you. Don't worry, listener. I'll ask her for you. Is how do we find that work-life balance? And I think you just touched on it, so I'd love for you to expand on that, like how you live, who you are, right? If you could expand on that, finding that work-life balance. That's what everybody wants.
Totally. And it's funny, I just did a reel this morning about like coaches. And one of the things was, we're coaches. We help people find work-life balance, even though we know it doesn't exist. And I'm joking, but I'm kind of serious in the fact that it's like, I've heard people say work-life harmony. And I do feel like that's a little bit better, because like some people really want to be workaholics in the sense of they want to work longer days than a typical person. They're invested, they have a certain goal and they know what they need to do. And they are at their best doing that thing. On the reverse, there are people that they want to give 60% at their job, go home, 5 o'clock, all good. Their focus is personal life, family life, whatever it is. And I think it's figuring out, back to philosophy, like where you shine, like what a day in the life of you as your best self looks like, and replicating that as much as possible. And that might be you are getting up at 4 a.m. and you're going to the office 2 hours early. Like, I'm not going to hate you on that if that is actually just what serves you. I'm also not going to hate on the person who's like, I like to show up 30 seconds before my day starts because I want my mornings to meditate and yoga and make my kids breakfast and all of that. So it's your balance, I guess, but there's no core, like, this is work-life balance for all, you know?
Yeah. I like that you just said that at the end there. You kind of said it. What I got from what you just said at the end there is that there is no work-life balance for all. There is everybody's going to be different, and that you have. I like the other thing that you mentioned there. I feel like it's like a learning point right there is identify what your best day looks like. What has been a day that you woke up, went to work, spent time with family or friends, whatever it is, that you had kind of like a little bit of kind of hit on almost every point in the wheel, to go back to Tony Robbins, kind of hit on every point in the wheel. And how did that feel for you? And if it was great, how do you replicate it? I love that. I think that that's such a great learning point right there of, you look at the wheel of life and you have work, you have relationships, you have love, you have passions, you have giving back to your community, you have finances, you have a couple others that I can't think off the top of my head. And if you were able to kind of touch in every area, how do you replicate that day or that week, right? Because I think, and I'd love for you to expand on this too, is we also put so much pressure on ourselves, as I just did just now, of we got to hit every point on that wheel in 24 hours. Actually less, because we're sleeping for some of that, right? And part of it is rest. And I think that's part of the one that I missed on the wheel, by the way, is probably health, exercise, rest. So I'd love for you to expand on this, on kind of spreading that wheel out throughout our week, not just in a day. Maybe it's replicating our week and not our day or our month, right?
Totally. And this is so relevant. Like it's January 5th, first week of 2024. First week of January, first Friday of the year, all this stuff. And what I've heard from clients this week is like, I'm not feeling it. Like I'm not doing the thing. I'm not showing up. I'm tired. I'm not motivated. I'm stressed. I'm all the things. But the pressure but it's January and it's new year, new you. And you gotta be, you didn't wake up at 3 a.m. to go to the gym for 7 hours. Like, what are you doing? And it's like that pull of those two sides. And like you said, I've been telling clients and I laugh, but I've been like, just get it done. Like, go through the motions this week. It's okay. Like, don't put all the pressure to be your best self the first week of January 2024. Mm. Like, that's crazy. You have 11 other months to work on things and focus and figure out what habits work for you. So to your point, I love that about, day, week, month, and some, maybe this month is health and your focus is health and you're joining a gym and you're trying to do more, vegetarian meals and all that stuff. But maybe finances aren't the focus this month. And, not to say you're spending all your money, but it's like, it's not the top priority. And I think it's okay to have the focus shift, and certain parts of your wheel are more, top of mind, and you're putting more of that energy towards it. But I think it's, it's an ebb and a flow. But yeah, to hit all the points every day, 100%, like, that's a lot. That just feel like I'm stressed just saying that out loud. It's too much.
Yeah. And I don't think anybody's doing it. And,
yeah.
The people that, like I said, that I follow and that I listen to and that are high achievers, to speak to Brendan Burchard, because he's the one I'm very involved with right now. This guy started an entire community, created an online app and build out the software. He does live events that he puts on, the live events with his team and with other professionals, and then is a professional speaker and author and writes books and all this other stuff. And even he, as this high achiever in the self-development space, in the space of balance, of trying to have this work-life balance, this harmony and everything, speaks to, even he doesn't hit all those points. He has something cool, which is he does, and I keep saying I'm going to do this assessment and I don't do it. It's like free part of my membership in his community. But there's like a daily assessment. Yeah. It's like there's this daily assessment of essentially the wheel of life. And then there's a weekly, and then there's a monthly, and there's an annual one. And in it, it touches on all these, like, how do you feel like from 1 to 5 on this scale, and how do you feel on this scale and that scale? And then it gives you a score at the end of it. And he speaks openly about his scores. He's just like, I scored a 70% this week. I didn't reach out to friends and family as much as I wanted to, or I scored an 80% this week. And like, he speaks to it. And I think it's nice for us people who are striving to be at a level maybe like that, or just at our own level, to realize that even the people that are perceived high achievers, they don't hit the wheel every day and every week. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like you said, like that pressure of they're doing it, and they're not all doing it.
Mm-mm. Absolutely. Yeah. Like my Becca is Brene Brown, and I think her popularity comes from telling stories of fights with her husband and times she showed up and, she gave a sucky presentation, or like those real moments where it's like, okay, even Tony Robbins, they can't do it all the time. And then and I think that's what makes a really good coach too, is, someone who is not showing up, well, I know it all, so let me teach you the ways, and guide you through. It's more like, I'm a human and you're a human, and let's figure it out and we'll do the best we can. I think that helps the intimidation of working with a coach come down a bit.
It's so cool that you just brought that up. And the reason why is I started reading this book, Michael Bungay, something about, it's a book for coaches. I'm going to have it up in 2 seconds.
Okay, good. I'm going to add it to my list in 2 seconds.
Oh, yeah. But he sent a newsletter out, because, of course, I signed up for his newsletter now, about the time he coached Brene Brown.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So cool. It's called The Coaching Habit: Say Less, Ask More, and Change the Way You Lead Forever. And it's Michael Bungay, The Coaching Habit. And so the reason why I'm so happy you brought that up is because of what you just said, which is, in his book, while I'm like halfway through, what many leaders do, managers is who he's really speaking to, and coaches, the trap that we as coaches sometimes fall into. I, as a new coach, I tend to fall into this trap, and I'm much more aware about it now, which is we want to solve the other person's problem. And so they bring up this issue, this concern, and it's, okay, here's my tried and true three-way methodology to be able to solve it for you, versus what you just shared. And I'd love for you again to expand on it, which is, let's talk through it. And my experience being coached and what I try to do with my clients is, let's talk through it and help you solve it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Like, the client has the answer. We all, it's here, it's somewhere. We just usually need to kind of cut out the crap and, get through all and process to get to that answer. Like, I've had coaching sessions where it's like 10 minutes and I'm just like watching the person. Like, they are getting to it, and I'm not going to interrupt that. And almost at the end, they're like, thank you. And I'm like, I literally did nothing. I literally am sitting here just observing. And it's real. And it's, I think coaching provides the space, mm-hmm. and a safe space and a sounding board and someone to ask the right questions and someone to listen. I feel like so often, we're talking, but no one's listening. So, I think it does provide that, but so often it's great when someone can just figure it out, because we all can. We just sometimes need some support and tools and space.
Yeah, like you just said, it's providing the guardrails and asking powerful questions. I know that the hardest times that I've gone through where I knew like I needed to reach out to Merritt, and I was like, I know our session's like 2 days from now, but I need you today. The text that I send her of like, I need you to ask me some really tough questions. Like, can we get on a call and can you just ask me like 3 powerful questions? Because I've learned that it's within me. And I think there's some trust that needs to be built, some inner trust for our clients, for anybody out there, to trust that the answers they reside within you. If this problem has come about, it's for a reason, and there's a solution inside of you, and it's for you to figure out. And I think also there's no right or wrong way, and that's the other thing that we learn, right? There's no right or wrong way. I'm interested in terms of how you approach new clients or people who are learning about getting involved in coaching on the way that we just talked on this approach, and I'll kind of just frame that question with. Because I think for the most part, and because of my mentality going into coaching or being coached, for the most part, we see coaches typically with athletes, typically on the sports field. And what are they doing? For the most part, they're instructing the players to do certain things. Yes, at the end of the day, they want their player to be able to think on the fly and think through the issue on their own, and those make the great players. But at the core of it, what we're seeing is they set up a play, or they're giving them a training regimen, or they're telling them what to do. So I think that for the most part, people are conditioned with, okay, Nicole, you're a coach. You're going to have the answers. You're going to give me the playbook. You're going to give me the blueprint. How do you help them understand what we just talked about?
Yeah, so it's funny. I was like a yearbook French club girl in high school and college. So I mean, I did not have coaches. That was for other folks. But anytime that someone, especially in high school, we were a big football high school. Anytime someone told a story about the coaches they were working with, it was never, they told me to make this play and I did, and I scored the goal or whatever. It was always like these side conversations, or they came up to them, at halftime, or it was outside the locker room or in the locker room, or it was during class, coach was, walking through the hall and pulled someone aside. It was always these like smaller moments that were more philosophical, more addressing the human versus the player. And I think that that's what our type of coaching is. It's addressing, sure, you can come in and be like, I'm trying to get a promotion. Can I help? Absolutely. But we are not just going to discuss your leadership skills and what your relationship is like with your boss. It's more than that. It's like, how do you think about your job, and how do you, like, why does the promotion mean anything to you? We're going to go further. So I think coaching is very, like, the biggest question I get is, what is coaching? Because it's so like, everyone's a coach. I coach my team, and it's like we're all doing it, which is great in a sense, but it's also hard to then explain like how what I do is different from what someone else does who also says, they have some coaching in there. So, I mean, I think it's expressing how you create that space and that conversation to have those discovery moments. Like, it's really self-discovery where you're realizing, oh, I have the answer, or, oh, I actually hate this company, or, I feel like my boss doesn't hear me, or like those, like, we peel back and suddenly there's like these core things. Oh, like, I get this now. Same as like, the sports coach, those side conversations is like, oh, that's where the discovery happens. So we're creating a space for that, I guess.
Yeah. And I agree with you in those side conversations. And it's those little comments too that kind of help. Like, I had one client, she signed up with me. So most of my focus in my public speaking, or not my focus, but it's what I get hired for, is typically in the communication space of public speaking tips. So I usually get like, oh, can you come and do a public speaking presentation, a communications presentation? And I kind of morph it into my whole little inner confidence thing, which because I truly believe that everybody's a great communicator. They're just not comfortable or confident enough to be able to communicate. And that's why I typically, will open it up to my audience and just say, anybody here have any friends? And everybody will raise their hands. And I'm like, do you ever have a conversation with them? And everybody raised their hands. And I'm like, do you ever laugh with them? Ever get sad with them? Ever share emotions with them? And everybody, of course, raises their hands and kind of like, and I'm like, so then you're all like public speakers. It's just that it changes when you come up in the front of the room. That what changes? And what changes is your comfort level. It's your confidence. It's your trust. It's all of these different things change. So it's how do we take that? How do we transfer that, right? How do we take it from sitting on a couch with a friend to standing in front of 300 people? Scary, but we can do it, right? And it has to do with confidence. So anyway, I was meeting with this woman. I had done a presentation, and so she signed up with me because she wanted to work on her accent. And I was like, okay, cool. I was like, whoa, I don't think I ever put like accent coach in my repertoire. I was like, but all right. So I made sure to do my research on some tips on accent coaching and what I can do to help her. And so she met with me and I shared some tips with her. Some of it is it's opening your jaw more. It's not speaking through your lips as much. And it's really just to start like retraining the way that you speak in that sense. And then also with accents, it's not just accents. It's also some of the grammar that we use of maybe pluralizing or not pluralizing certain words. So anyway, as I'm doing this with her and asking her questions about like, okay, why is this important to you? Why is losing your accent or changing your accent so important to you? It's like all of a sudden, because I want to start this business. And it was just breakthrough. Yeah. Right?
That's awesome.
And
I love that.
It's really cool, like when you see that, when you have that experience with them. I want to like stay on the philosophy thing and the coaching thing, but I'm also interested in the French thing because that's come up a few times.
Okay.
And your last name is French.
Yep, French Canadian.
And so I'm interested. You said your mom would be really impressed and proud of you when you said you studied Sartre. And so I'm interested in this background of this French background and maybe mom or dad and their philosophy thing and how that might have kind of brought you into the field. And the reason why I bring this up is because you said you accidentally fell into this field of coaching.
Yeah. I see that's a coach right there. I see where you're going. So yeah, my dad and his side is French Canadian. So like he grew up, he spoke French before he spoke English. My mom did her thesis in graduate school on Sartre. So again, when I declared, I'm going to be a philosophy major, my parents were just like, I'm sorry, what? Like you have like happiness, but also like you have mocked us and our stories about what we studied for so long. Like, and then I'm borrowing their books like, hey, that scary book. Like I actually need that for a paper I'm writing. So studying philosophy led to, there are a lot of French philosophers. So there was a program at my university to study abroad. And one of the options was Paris. And I mean, put the philosophy aside for a second, like studying abroad in Paris, like I'm not going to be totally mad about that. So I did that. And I mean, I could talk forever about that experience. Like that change, we talk about like these things that like momentous change how like we live. That experience changed how I lived. Went to Sartre's graves, left him a note. What my parents came to visit, we all went to his grave to honor the philosophy gods. And I studied French as well. So I was studying philosophy and studying French in college. My minor was French. I was speaking French so well while I was there. I lived with a woman who spoke no English. So I was forced to speak French. And then I made French friends and it was great because I was just like immersion. I had no other choice. It's definitely faded extremely since then. But I mean, ever since that experience, it's tied me more to, I guess, my French heritage and just the tie-in with philosophy. Like it all kind of comes together. I'm also a foodie, so I mean, Paris food, like they go hand in hand too.
Yeah. And so, je parle un peu de français aussi.
Un peu.
Un peu.
Petit peu.
Un petit peu. My mother raised us in a house she only spoke French to us as kids.
Oh my gosh, no way.
Yeah. So I grew up only speaking French.
Good for you.
I'm saying this to empathize with you. So I spoke only French, and up until probably about, let's just go with 13 as a number. That's when it started changing. And I think part of it was because I spoke French to my mother. I wasn't taught French outside of there. And so there were certain things in my life that were changing that I could no longer express in French without hearing it from somebody who spoke French. And so it started switching to English. And now I actually, on my drive into the studio here today, I was talking to my mother, and it's so, I always am so challenged with speaking to her for the past 10 years because I speak to her in English now. And it used to be like after that phase in 13, it was like there was like this Franglish, I guess, of like French and English mix, and it was like predominantly French and a little bit of English, and then it started transitioning to a lot of English and a little bit of French, and then now it's like, no, we're just going to speak English here. So I've completely lost it. It's like,
and are you sad about that? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, my daughters asked her like, oh, you speak French with Gomel, and like we have French words, and I'll speak French with my mother every now and then, like very little French, but nothing to where I feel confident to teach my daughters enough. Well, there's a little thing there, Michael, to work on. But I feel you on that, in that, like, I love that you brought up the word immersion, in that when we're immersed in something and how we're able to learn it so quickly. And the challenge is because we come out of that immersion, like eventually I won't be part of the Growth Day community. I don't know when that day is. I don't know if that's ever to happen, but there's going to be a point where I'm going to see something else and see something different and go there. It's up to us to stay with the thing that we learned. And so for you and me, French dropped off, but there were other things that carried over. And for you, it was philosophy and all that. Before we go any further, you said some things there that I want to stay on, which, I mean, how do you say, I can go on forever about this, and then you say momentous time in my life changing, and how are we not going to go there? Like, right? Like life changing into the habit. So we bring up this idea of immersion and how some things stick and some things don't, but the things that stick are the things that like we carry on in our everyday life and become part of who we are. And I almost think of this, going back to this work-life balance, as like who we are, right? And what do we become, and how do we take like what we really like about something we learned and involve it and include it in our regular life, like you said with cooking. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about this experience in Paris and the moment that you really felt this momentous change.
Yeah. Oh, where to start? It was just, I was there for, I think, 5 months, like a semester. And it's funny to talk about this like such a momentous occasion, because when I arrived there, I was so homesick. And I've never been really homesick before. I mean, crying. I mean, I was a mess. I was like, someone come get me, like take me away from here. My dad always jokes the story that I called him from the airport, and I was like, everyone's speaking French here. And he's like, yeah, I mean, they do that. They do that in France. It's this weird thing. But it was just like, it all hit me so hard. And it was, talking about like immersion and change. Like it was such a big change, probably the biggest change I had experienced yet in my life. So it was very overwhelming. So I would say the first 2 weeks were just like, get me through the day without crying in public was the beginning. Cut to the flight home, crying the whole flight home, because I'm like, don't send me home. Like, why am I going back to the US? Like, let me stay in Paris. But it was just, I mean, studying French philosophy in French is like a whole other experience. We had this one professor, and like we would go out to dinner and share a bottle of wine with her. And I mean, it was cliches all over the place. Like it was just magical. And, I really feel like I took advantage of the experience. I mean, like, let's be honest, like I partied hard and I don't know how I ever, got up in the morning to go to class, but I went to like all the museums weekly. I mean, I was always doing cultural stuff. I saw concerts and shows and, really tried to make friends with like French people and, do what they did and go to the places they hung out at. And it was just amazing. And I ate like in food. I mean, I ate my way through that city. I mean, there was nothing I wouldn't try. And it was great. Like almost every day that I had class, I went and got a crepe and a hot chocolate, I think. Just as like not a meal, just, something to get you through, the afternoon slump, which I mean, a Nutella crepe's not going to do that. But it was just amazing. So like so many moments like that. So when I came back from that experience, I think the momentous thing was there is more to life, because I was in college, from a fairly small town in New Hampshire, coming from a place of like, this is life. And like for anyone listening, I'm gesturing my hands like very small. And when you go to a different country and, I traveled to other countries while I was there and you like, even like the political stuff, like hearing how they saw US politics and what they were dealing with, you just realize, oh my gosh, there was way more beyond. Like I didn't get the 8 a.m. Wednesday class that I wanted for second semester. Like you see way more. So when I came back, I broke up with my long-term boyfriend when I came back from that trip. Like things changed because I was like, I am not the same and I don't want to be the same. So I was like, let's change it all. And I just feel like I've stayed that way. Like I'm very conscious to try to pull myself out of like, nope, your little world is there. And like, you can be in that, but you got to remember there's like way more other stuff going on.
Share with us I've changed and I like this change and I don't want to go back to the old way of being. I think about this and, again, we're so embedded in the conversation of coaching. Why not stay here? In that it is hard to change and it's so hard to shed your old self. So, I'll give you a little bit in terms of like what you said with yourself. Like one of the things that you've done is in terms of like your coaching courses and exercise and everything is that you've decided that you're only going to have a certain amount of martinis per week, right? Because that's your drink.
I said that?
No. Well, you didn't say martinis. You said I have a set amount I could drink out of alcohol per week. Is something that you wrote, and then you also said you like martinis. So I kind of ad-libbed there for you. But what I'm getting at here is that so there's this old persona of whatever. I drink casually. I don't know what it is. I don't know how many it is, but I'm more connected to what I want and my goals. And so now I've decided that I only have X amount per week. And so you've made a change. And so there's people who see this change and who maybe know past you and say, hey, you know what? You always have 3 martinis. And you're like, yeah, well, I only have 1 now. And are like a little bit pulled away from it or kind of like weirded out by it. And so what I'm interested in this, what you just shared in the example of breaking up your old boyfriend and all this change, is how we are able to help others when we're going through so many changes and we're changing. And how do we help them understand what we're experiencing? How do we help the people that love us and that are around us adapt to this new person? And in this change that we're experiencing, like, we're looking for our own acceptance and our own people. So how do we transition into this is kind of like where I'm going with that question.
Wow, that's a really good question. I mean, I think it's, and this is hard. This is, I think, harder for more people than not is sharing, because I think so like using the martinis as an example, if I'm deciding I'm only going to drink 1 martini a week and I see, friends on Tuesday and I don't have a drink, there's perception now.
Right.
What's going on with her? Is she depressed? Is she this? Is she that? All the things. Go with a different group of friends, another night not having a martini, thoughts, like all this narrative. And I think there's a bit of like, let them have that narrative, like I'm doing me, it shouldn't matter. But there's also a bit of like, if they're truly part of our network, if they're really like support, then like let them in a bit. Like here's why. I just, if I had more than one, I would be so tired. I'm really trying to wake up and go to this great yoga class that I love, and that's kind of my focus. And I think always our thought is we're going to share and they're going to judge us more. Like you get up for yoga and that's why you're not drinking, or like, you're doing this or you're doing that. And like, you used to be this way and whatever. But what I've found, and I'm trying to always keep this in mind, is it's usually the opposite. It's usually like, oh, that's really cool. Oh my God, I have a friend that, is thinking the same thing. Like I remember I've had a lot of conversations in the last 6 months about drinking. And it's just actually surprising how many people are just like, I don't like how I feel, like I'm older now. I'd rather get up at 6 a.m. on Sunday and do Pilates than have a rager. And it's just, again, you think, oh my gosh, like I'm not going to have a glass of wine. They're going to judge, but it's actually like, oh, I don't want a glass of wine. Like I got to get up with the kids or whatever. It's much more like the water's fine. Like feel free to dive in versus what are they going to say? So I feel like I ramble there, but basically letting people in on the why of your changes can actually be much more embracing than, wait, what? Like, sit over there kind of feel.
Yeah, I like that of the letting them know why, that letting them in. I think that's what typically happens is we change and people are asking why, and we get defensive because we feel they're going to judge us. I love how you touched on that, is like we're afraid of this judgment. And to your point, like the judgment isn't as bad in our head as it really is. Like there really isn't, and especially if they're people that care about us, right?
Yeah. Or that it's the judgment might be coming, but it's because they don't know, like they think you're mad at them, or they think you're unhappy with the friendship, or, they're creating their own narrative and they're judging that, not you. So once you explain, here's what's going on, it's usually like, oh, wow. Well, like I was way over here, but this makes a lot more sense. Or like, let me help, or how can I support you, or tell me more about that, or I'm sorry you're going through that, or anything I can do to help.
Yeah. On the drinking thing, I think it's also just finding more fun things to do too, which is really cool. Like, I stopped drinking, and a friend of mine said, so is this going to be a thing now? Are you just, so you just don't, he's like, so you just don't drink anymore? I'm like, so you accidentally fell into coaching. I accidentally stopped drinking. And I'm just like, yeah, I guess. I was like, I don't know. And it was along the lines of what you said, like, I want to be more productive. I don't want to wake up tired. I don't see how this is helping me. Actually, this ties back to our whole work-life balance conversation in that, how did you say it? Of everything you do is what you are.
The way you do one thing, you do everything.
The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And for me, it was, if I'm going to live this life of self-development, of preaching self-development, of standing on stages talking about it, of coaching people, then I want to improve myself, right? I want to be the person that I brought up Brendan before, right? Brendan Burchard. I want to be, if I'm going to follow him as a mentee and he's my mentor, then I'm looking at his life and I'm going, well, how does he practice his life? How does he practice the habits that he's teaching me? And if he falls off of that, I don't necessarily judge him, but maybe some credibility. Maybe I start looking for somebody who's more in line with my values, right? Not that he has at all yet or not. So I need to be that person for myself. I need to be that person for myself so that I could be authentic when I stand on stage, when I'm coaching, when I'm doing these things to my audience, to my people. And so that's where that kind of change started happening. But it's funny because it was like, so is this going to be a thing now?
Yeah. And that's the funny thing too, is like, I still, I do drink. I haven't given it up, but I do, if I drink one night, there's a really good chance I'm not drinking the next night. Like I watch it and I get those comments too. Like what's going on? And it's just like, I mean, I'm 37. That's what's going on. Like I have other goals other than, perfecting the martini. Like it doesn't, and that's with anything, it's when our priorities shift. And I think that's like growing up. I mean, different things are more important, leaving the party early so that you can get up and, be productive is usually kind of what happens with a lot of friends I'm talking to now versus got to stay, out late till the bar closes or whatever.
Yeah, the productivity side to it all is really, I think that's the big driver in all of it. So so going back to this whole work-life balance thing, in that what we're talking about here is that, I think it's you become the person that you want to be, and everything else kind of falls in line. Like as I started developing the person I want to be, like, we've done this in our entry level coaching, like, who is it that you want to be? Who are you becoming? All of this stuff, right? And it start living into that. And then I feel like for me, the other things start falling into place. Now for me, just sharing again, like just because all the other things fell into place doesn't mean that I don't have those days, right? Like yesterday was one of those days for me. It was like just meeting. Then I coached basketball. Then I run a basketball league. And it was like from morning to night, it was just, I didn't have a moment. And that's going to happen, right? Like, and that's okay. That's just part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Like I've been, again, I wasn't coming into this week like we're doing all the things for 2024, but one of the things I really enjoy is like my morning time and my morning routine. So I was very conscious I started like my back to work on Wednesday. So Wednesday morning routine, perfect, loved it, felt good. Yesterday, morning routine, perfect, loved it. Today, it just was off. Like something didn't work. And again, I could see myself going down the road of like, well, today's going to suck. Like, why bother now? Cancel all my meetings. I can't help anybody. Might as well just go back to bed. And instead, really kind of checking into, it's very unlikely that you're going to hit your morning routine 365 days. Like that is crazy. So, okay, Friday, first week back, it wasn't perfect. Yeah, I think we'll be okay. I think we can do the rest of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you said that, because I've actually fallen off of my morning routine, and what I go to the seasons thing. I love that other way of looking at our life, our wheel of life, as the seasons. And I was in a season for a very long time of waking up at 4:30 in the morning. I was a 5 a.m.er, 4:30, 5 a.m.er. I loved it. And then I realized, you know what? I actually need more sleep. And I was going to bed early. It's not like I wasn't. I was going to bed by like 9 o'clock. I was out by 9 o'clock. Yeah. I'm still out by like 9:30ish, 9:30, 10. But now I'm sleeping until 6:30. And it's because I just felt like, in this season of my life, I just need more sleep.
Yeah.
And with the whole New Year's thing, that's another interesting one that you brought up earlier. The amount of pressure that we put on ourselves of like setting these New Year's goals and like, I'm going to exercise and I'm going to wake up earlier. And I kind of just feel, I go back to the seasons thing of like, you know what? Like New Year's happened for me, and we were talking about it before we got on, and I was in bed by 10. But New Year's happened for me. But to me, it's a celebration of a new year. It's like, yeah, it's 2024. This is cool. There's some reflection going on of like, what did the year look like? What were some of the good things, the bad things, whatever it was, what it looked like? What do I maybe envision for 2024 and all that other stuff? But on the other end, I'm kind of like, the season that I'm in started about 2 months ago, and I'm still in it. And so I'm not going to force myself to change out of it, because it's just what I need right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if January 1st is going to work for you in terms of like clean slate, new start, whatever, like do it, do it, do it hard. If not, if you're kind of already in a journey or you're still trying to figure stuff out, like that's okay. Like one of the big things I've been talking to clients and people about is picking a word, picking like a theme or a mantra for the year. I'm still working on mine. Like I've been journaling about it and trying to figure out, but like if you ask me, I don't have one yet. and it's January 5th. And I'm cool with that. It's not, if I picked one January 1st, it wouldn't be real. It would be like an arbitrary, hey, you got the pressure, like pick something. But like I'm working on it and it deserves the time. And most of the things that we're trying to accomplish deserve the time. So again, it's like, certain habits feel good to kick off, or certain goals. You're like January 1's the day. I think that's great, but everything can't fit into that. And that's okay. It's silly to try to make that work.
For me, the test is going to be my birthday, because my birthday is usually the day that hits me a little bit more with that reflection. Okay. I wonder if that's
When's your birthday?
My birthday is January 12th.
Oh, coming up. Okay.
Yeah, so it's actually very close to the it's very close to the new year, so it could be kind of confusing. And so I'm interested in myself of like, is that going to be a day for me? There's actually a lot happening in my life and in my business right around my birthday this year. Just so happens, like there's like, I have this big event coming up. I have different things in the business that are happening that are good, and also who knows, kind of like there's just these question marks happening around the same exact time, like within a couple days. So it'll be an interesting birthday for me. I'm curious to find out like how I'm going to feel. I have no idea.
Yeah. And maybe it's not entirely an accident that like all that stuff's happening around that time.
And that goes back. Yeah. That goes back to our philosophers, right? Like in that, like all of these things happen for reasons, and they kind of like come full circle. And it's just, philosophy is so interesting to me. I need to get more involved in it. I have a question for you about homesickness. When you said that earlier, I was curious on this, in that what we identify as homesickness. So first, kind of like preliminary question here is, was that the first time you traveled abroad?
Alone, yes.
Alone. Okay, so this is playing into it, and so I'm curious on like what, we use the term homesickness. What do you identify as homesickness? What does that mean? And
yeah, it's funny. As I think about it, like it comes like physically.
Sorry, I made you sick.
It's like, oh my God.
I promise I'll make you feel better again.
But I mean, it is a feeling of just wanting to transport back to the familiar. Like all I wanted was like, bring me back to my family room, watching a movie with my parents, drinking lemonade, like just get me back there. And the comfort of that. I know what that looks like. I know what that feels like. No surprises. It's almost like a weird version of fear of the unknown. Like being homesick is also like, there's just so much unknown right now. Like, I don't know where, like when we were there, I was still trying to figure out where I was staying, like where the woman I was going to be staying with lived, what our relationship was going to be like, how do I get food? Like there was a whole program for like paying for like certain amount of meals. And like, I mean, there was just so much to not know. And it's almost like I short circuited and I couldn't take all the unknowns. So I was just like, oh, take me back to that bubble, my nest.
Yeah, I think of safety. It's like your own safety. So I brought it up intentionally, and it's because of that. I think that when we're talking about change and we're talking about all these different things, it's that fear of the unknown, right? Because that's what it is. Like when when I hear homesick, that's what I think of is what is it that we're really missing? Mm-hmm. We're just missing that, like you said, comfort, that safety, that knowing that at 6:00 dinner's on the table, lemonade's coming, we're going to watch such and such show, everybody's together. When I think about it for me of traveling or being alone or whatever, it's like, for me, it's like missing a hug from somebody that I know I love or that loves me, But I think that it's an important one to address, because we could be homesick and we could be close to home.
Yeah. I mean, I have had versions of that feeling since. And like, luckily, like that, it turned out great, like silver lining was like I stayed and had the best time ever. So, I mean, what's happened since, the good news is I'm like, I know this. I know what's happening here. I know I'm freaking out because there's a lot of unknown and a lot of change. But think about how that change went. Like, oh my gosh, I'm alone in Paris. What's going to happen? I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. The best 5 months of your life. That's what's going to happen. So now I think the next big time it happened was I went through a yoga teacher training. And that was like a big commitment. No one I knew was doing it. So I was very much I remember sitting outside of the classroom waiting for like the first day to start and having that same feeling. And I had to talk myself through like, yep, you felt this before. You're going to feel it for a few days, but like, you're probably going to feel really awesome by the end of this experience. So like just tuning into like change is effing scary. But likely if the scary changes are the best ones. So like just kind of like hang in, believe in yourself, whatever mantra you got to tell yourself to get through that initial like scared point and get to the other side of it.
Tell us about that self-awareness, because I feel like that's vital to this.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know how I became, like, thank God I became self-aware of that, because it's just a horrible feeling, like homesickness and that overwhelming fear is awful. But I think it's because it's such a unique feeling that I can recognize it. And I think the important part is like doing something about it. Like, okay, you're feeling this. Yep, we're going through a similar change, like noticing the trends. We're doing something big and different. Last time you experienced this, you were doing something big and different. And focusing really on but look how it turned out. And, and I've noticed, I can't think of all the times I have felt this way, but it has come up. And it lasts less time now because I'm more in tune to, yep, I know this, like, but we're good, than the first time where it was like, we're not good. Like, what is going to happen? Now you know. So I think, believing yourself, such a cliche, but like believing in yourself that you've seen this before. You can do this. You can get through it. You've gone through worse. All of those things are usually really true and they can be really helpful.
Yeah, it's like the visualization techniques that we use, right? Of like visualizing ourselves going through the process in order to kind of have that experience and see it turn out well, tapping into that. So I like that you brought all of this up in that, like, when we're feeling this overwhelm, and when I say homesick, and you can have it right next door, it's like homesick is that feeling of overwhelm. It's that feeling of fear of the unknown. It's not knowing what's next. It's the new job. It's the promotion. It's stepping on stage. It's meeting with a coach. I had somebody put in their feedback form for me, not feedback form, intake form for me with coaching. She said, I'm actually afraid to meet with you, and that's why I'm meeting with you. And it was like funny, but the first part, right? Actually afraid to meet with a coach. So it's all of these things, that fear of the unknown of like, what's it going to be like? And I would like to just highlight some of the tips that the strategies that you just brought up, which were being aware of it, identifying it, acknowledging it in that, yeah, this is big and scary. And when have I had? So it's asking, when have I had an experience like this before? And we could probably know different experiences in our lives that are at least similar to the feeling. And then how did they turn out? And of course, we're going to have those ones that were a horror story and that were just like, this was awful. But we're also going to have the ones that were great. So it's like, tune into the ones that were great.
Absolutely.
But I think if we're also analyzing all of it, it's like, why did those ones turn out bad? What was it about those that turned out bad that we could do differently? What could we have learned from those bad experiences that we could do differently today? So I think there's a lot to learn in what you just shared there about your homesickness. I think it's so cool. And I appreciate you sharing that with all of us. I have some homesickness happening right now. So a bit of really cool news to share with you that I'm feeling a little like, I don't know if it's overwhelm or anxiety. I don't know how to categorize it yet because it's so far into the future right now. But I just got hired for my very first hour keynote at a conference, at a 3-day conference.
Oh my God, amazing. Congrats.
It's amazing. Thank you. And you're one of the first people I'm sharing it with
Oh,
publicly.
wow. That's
Uh,
great.
but I'm bringing it up really more because of what we're talking about, in that it's my first keynote. Like, it's my first hour, like 1 hour keynote. The person who hired me even said, we're going to have other speakers, but you're the keynote. You're setting the tone for the conference. You'll be the first day, first hour person who sets the tone for the next 3 days. And I'm like, yeah, of course, that's me. Yay, I'm in. And then I hang up, and it's in September, so it's several months from now. And I hang up, and I tell my wife, and I'm like shaking. I was literally shaking. I was just like, holy crap, what did I sign myself up for?
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead, ask the question, because like I'm interested in your thoughts here.
No, so I mean, so how are you dealing with the homesickness, the anxiety, the shaking?
It's what you said. It's creating the experiences. So for me, the first thing that came to mind was, I was like, all right, I need to book 3 gigs like now, and it's not for the gigs. It's for me. It's like, I need to book 3 talking engagements right now, that speaking engagements that push me to get to that hour, that are like 10 minutes here, 30 minutes there, 45 minutes, that lead up to what does an hour look like, and having done it. So that's one of the things. With what you just said too, in terms of experiences, I'm like, all right, well, I've done 2-hour workshops. I did my very first full day workshop, where I was the presenter from 9 to 5 and presented the whole workshop. So I've done these things that can be condensed into an hour. So I'm kind of tapping into all of that, but I'm also a little bit like, holy crap, Michael, what did you do?
Well, that's good. I mean, I think that, like, getting back to the homesickness thing, like any change that's just kind of, yeah, whatever. Like, how big is that going to be for you? How, like, exciting and life changing in a good way is that going to be? So the fact that you're like freaking out a little bit, like, that shows it's a big deal in a good way. It's exciting. It's going to bring more for you. So I think tuning into, like, yep, it's big, but like grateful it's big,
Right. Yeah, that and I use all of the strategies that we just talked about, which is I visualize it, I see it, like I could see it in my mind right now. I could see myself on a stage talking, I got it. I know I'm going to work on it. I know I'm going to be doing everything. I know I'm going to have my 60 minutes done before the summer. I know I'm going to do all these things. And so it's trusting in that. I think the reason why I wouldn't categorize it as overwhelm or anxiety is because I feel like overwhelm and anxiety, what I would identify as that right now would be that would happen if I was unprepared or unqualified. And because I know I'm qualified and that I'm going to be prepared, like I'm already somewhat prepared, right? But because I know I'll be prepared, I'm like, all right, I'm not there, and nor do I want to be there, right? So I'm in this place of, like, to your point, it's like there's that maybe we'll call it fear for now, but it's a good one, right? It's like because I'm scared, I know I need to do it. Because I'm scared, it's because it's good for me, and it's really big growth. So
Yeah. Well, congrats to you. That's so exciting.
pretty cool stuff. And that we're all working through. Look at us getting a coaching call in while we're talking to each other here.
We can always make that happen. Always make that happen.
We always find a way, don't we?
Yes.
You did so much during COVID of, like, learning more about yourself, about your work, and you were so productive during COVID and being able to build yourself up. I'm interested into where that work has brought you now. So you're a coach now, you're working with business owners and entrepreneurs, and you got so many different things happening. You have this awesome Instagram channel where you do all of these cool creative reels. And I just want to kind of, like, bring us to present day now of, we've gone through Fordham University, philosophy, France, your parents, all of this cool stuff. We did some, like, little coaching exercises together. And I'm just so interested into where has it brought you to, and where are you going?
Yeah. I mean, if it weren't for those years in COVID, I mean, I would not be here. Like, definitely. Like, I think there was a real like choice there where it's like, all right, we can take this tactic of like live in fear and do the best you can and live in your pajamas 24/7 and, make a batch of brownies every week. Or we can like, we've been handed a shit sandwich. Let's do what we can with it. And I feel like I really took that path very early on. Like there, no room for error here. And I think I just set up some things that helped me now. So like at this point, like I have a client base, which I wouldn't say I had at the beginning of COVID at all. I created I had someone create a different logo with a different name, different email at the beginning of COVID. It's totally different than now. But I mean, I'm so glad I did it because I was just like, get in the zone, Nicole, like you're a coach, like do this stuff. So I mean, that's all changed. Websites changed, name of companies changed, all of that, which is great. But like I needed to like do it in a crappy version first, I think, to like build that. Speaking engagements coming up as well. I got my first like cold outreach to do a lunch and learn. So I'm super excited about that. I think that's next month.
Nice.
So that'll be cool. And it's just a whole new network, like between clients and people I've met, networking itself, to friends I've met along the way. Like I was just thinking about this, I think yesterday, like my world is different. Like the people, like just the top most recent texts that I have and if I met someone for a drink, what I'm talking about, like just those basic things have really changed. And I changed in a good way.
Where do you see the coaching business going for you?
I really want to start doing more on the leadership side. So like, I call myself a productivity and leadership coach and I love both sides of it. And a lot of times there's overlap. But I really do love the leadership side. And I really enjoy working with leaders. So I think, looking to do more with that. I'm going to get, certified to work with the DISC assessment. So I can offer that to clients. And, if companies already did it and needed someone to kind of walk them through it, that could be me. I want to do like some sort of leadership crash course, like almost you're a new leader, like WTF, now what? Something to that effect. But I mean, still, one-on-one coaching, I've considered group coaching. I don't know if I'm feeling that yet. Not saying no, but I really do like working with people one-on-one. And yeah, I'm just continuing to grow.
I love that, continuing to grow. I really do. I think like for me, like the people I want to work with are people that want to grow. That's really it. I'm interested in your definition of leaders, and I ask this because very often, we'll have a crowd in front of us. Like you'll do it at the lunch and learn. You'll say, "Who here considers himself a leader?" And maybe 3 people out of the 50 will raise their hand. And you're like, "Come on, wait a second. You're all at a lunch and learn. You could have been doing something else here. You're a leader of your day, right?" So I think it's sometimes it's it's the word itself and people's perception of the word, and then kind of like trying to fit themselves into the box of, oh, that's what a leader is, and so therefore I'm not. So I'm interested in what you define as a leader and the type of people that you enjoy working with.
Yeah, so I think a leader is someone who wants to rise up. So title is irrelevant, pay, grade, industry, none of that matters. If you want to rise up, that's someone I want to work with. So you have skills, you want to perfect them and grow them. You're in one role and you want to move to the next role. You are in one industry and you want to switch. You're in your role and you love it, but you want to be doing more in it. You feel like you could be showing up and offering more within there. you do a lot with the community, but you feel like it could be more targeted, whatever it is, but you're just looking to, like I say, level up a lot, which again, I feel like has like a corporate connotation, but doesn't have to be. Just looking to, kind of hone who you are, like perfect those skills, like get really down. I talk about leadership style a lot, like what is your leadership style? And then like use that every day, show up in that 110%.
Yeah. I'm glad that you were able to describe that, because leveling up, growing, being someone who's adapting and changing and trying new things is a leader. And I love that you said that it's got nothing to do with title or pay grade, because that's meaningless. It's really, are you taking charge of something in your life, of an area in your life? And it could also be personal, right? It doesn't have to be work. It could be, I want to be a leader at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I get a lot of clients who are just like, I'm just kind of in life. I'm just kind of doing the things, and they want to be a leader of their life. They want to be more proactive and this is how I spend the time. And this is when I wake up, and this is what I do in the morning, and this is what I do in the evening. And this is how I eat. And, this is how I spend my, lifestyle income and all that. So, I mean, things like that. Yeah. It doesn't have to be professional related.
It carries over into our personal life like 100%. Like, I know for me on the basketball court, it carries over. And for you, it also carries over into your community and helping the people in your community. And you spent some time volunteering with some non-for-profits, and some of them helping the homeless. You said that was an impactful journey for you as well. And I'm interested if you could share a little bit more about that one.
Yeah. So I worked at the New York City Rescue Mission for about a year in 20.
Don't worry, we're not quoting you on the year.
Yeah, so somewhere around there. It was about a year. And I mean, the biggest thing was like I was a grant writer. So I wrote grants for funding for the mission. And our offices, like anyone who had like a staff type role, were in the mission. So, I mean, we rode the elevator, we had lunch with the attendees of the mission. So, I mean, immersion, like, yep, full on immersion. And I think, that being in New York and living in New York and working at a mission in New York, it changes how you see people. It changes how you see government. It changes how you see how people see people. It was just a very, again, your world is like, I broke a nail today. I'm pissed. I just got a man. And like, then you work at, you get immersed in something else and you're like, what am I saying? This is crazy. And I remember being appreciative of that wake up call kind of on a daily basis. Because I think, I don't know if it's a millennial thing or it's a female millennial thing or if it's just like a Nicole thing, but like I can be very self-absorbed. Like my life, like, oh my gosh, like don't disrupt it. So I needed that daily check-in to be like, you better check yourself, Nicole, because like this is what's really going on.
Yeah, I'm interested in that idea of generations, and the idea that this generation is self-absorbed and that generation is harder and grittier. Do you have any takes on that?
It's funny. Clients bring this up a lot, like noticing differences in how people show up at work between the generations. I feel like millennials are just diagnosing ourselves all over the place. So, I think we're going to therapy, we're working with coaches, we're dealing with our trauma. We are doing all the self-help work. And I think there's a good side to that because we're self-aware. We know our triggers, we set boundaries, all of that. But I think there's this other piece of you're doing all that work, like very self-focused, like going to therapy. That's all about you. Working with a coach, it's all about you, working on self-development. it can be it's very self. So I think yes, I think there is some truth to like, my parents and I joke, like, enough about me, what do you think of me? Like, there's some truth to that, I think. I will be the first to admit it.
I like that. I like that joke. Enough about me. What do you think about me?
Yeah. My name's Nicole, and I am self-absorbed. Hi, Nicole.
That's so funny. Yeah, I ask it because you mentioned it. You just said, maybe it's the millennial in you and all that. But I don't know. I think that there's a little bit of that in each generation, though. I feel like we generalize these generations, and so often it's like, but you could find self-absorbed boomers, you could find self-absorbed Gen X, you could find all of them. And I'm going to get this quote because I keep referring to it, and I don't remember who it was, but I know it was like from the 1800s, right? And it was like, the next generation of kids are lazy, dumb, and only want to listen to the radio kind of thing. And it was like from the 1800s. And it was like, you just take that and like, that's literally what each generation has said about the next generation.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of why I feel like, I don't know. Like, I feel that, millennials react differently than maybe, and the age, right? There's an age difference. There's a millennial is anywhere from 20 to 40 or something, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, there's this huge age difference between a 40-year-old and a 60-year-old. Yeah, of course they're going to do things differently. They were raised different. Things were like, as 40, I'm 41. I'll be 42, I guess. Like, I wasn't raised with the internet, and my daughters, they have the internet at their they don't know a time before the internet. They don't know a time before cell phones. I do. You mentioned your age here, so I can say that you do too. Totally, yeah. So of course there's going to be a different logic on things, a different way of thinking. That's part of the whole thing. But I think that some of my issue at least is in the sense of like saying certain traits of whether they're lazy or outgoing or not. I feel like you're going to find that in every generation.
Yeah. Yeah. You bring up a good point. It's always, these kids today,
right?
Energy, no matter what. And it's true. And I think there's always an air, because I was thinking about like millennials. I feel like we're very in like nostalgia, like 80s and 90s. You can't get much better than that. And as we move further out, we're just like reminiscing. But I think, to your point, I think that's every generation. Like, it's always, we had the best Christmases, and, which is kind of great in a way that like every generation kind of looks back fondly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so you bring up a good point.
It's like, yeah, it's kind of like cyclical kind of thing. It's kind of, it's funny. I want to talk about horror movies real quick with you.
Oh, yes.
Because I can't watch them.
Oh, no.
I can't watch them.
You're not watching the right ones.
My first foray with horror movies would have been Freddy Krueger when I was a kid. Okay. And oh my goodness, he ruined my life. He ruined my sleeping habits. He ruined furnaces. He ruined pizza. He ruined black
and Depp. All the things.
He ruined black and red sweaters. Like, he ruined my life for so long. So I was in, I want to say maybe second or third grade. We were at a birthday party, family friend's birthday party, and all the kids were in a room, and Freddy Krueger was on. And I feel like there were some older kids in the room, like tweeners, like whatever they were. Maybe it was a 12-year-old's birthday party, something like that. And Freddy Krueger was on, and that was my first time seeing it and watching it. And I just remember, like, he gets you in your sleep and, all this crazy stuff, right? So I honestly never got over that. Like, my cousin and I, we tried to do immersion with it, and like we watched Freddy 1 through 15 in like a whole sitting, like a whole weekend. We just rented all of them from VHS. We rented them all from the video store, and nope. So I need to know, like, what is it about you walking out of a horror movie being like, I like looking over my shoulder?
I just.
What was your first experience?
Oh, we're going back. I mean, I think my first experience was like just embracing horror movies. And I'm talking like Frankenstein, like real, like probably today not so scary, but like I would have sleepovers and we would make popcorn and we would watch a scary movie. So it was my first memories are less about the movie and the experience. Like my dad would travel for work sometimes. On those nights, my mom and I would watch a scary movie when he wasn't there, and we would, popcorn or pizza or something. So it was more the overall memory than the movie. And I think I've kind of kept like, well, that's always the feel. And I've somehow been able to like continue that. Like if I'm gonna watch a scary movie with my husband, like there's a really good chance we're gonna light candles. There's a really good chance we're gonna make popcorn. Like it's a thing. And I feel like horror movies is kind of the only genre you can like make a real production out of it. And a horror movie can be bad and you can still really enjoy it. If a drama is really bad, you're not going to enjoy it. Comedy's not funny, you're not going to enjoy it. But like horror, like B horror movies, they're huge because people still love them.
Yeah, they're the best, right? So it's like it's really about setting the mood, and like it's more of an experience than it is just the movie.
Yes, like I'm thinking back this is in college, but the movie Saw. Did you ever see the movie Saw?
Saw, yes.
Okay. So when that movie came out, all the reviews were like, scariest movie ever. People leaving the theater. You're not going to believe the ending, blah, blah, blah. And you can't say those things to me and not have me run and buy tickets. Like so all of my college friends were all talking and we're looking at these reviews and like all the friends are like, well, I'm not seeing it. Like there's no way. And I had this one friend and she was like, I'll see it. And we were like, is it showing tonight? And it was showing that night. So we literally like got dressed, went to a theater in the city and saw it. And so like that whole thing of like, oh my gosh, we're going to see this movie. We're going to be so freaked out, and seeing the theater and like everyone's freaking out and, screaming. And the ending was like, oh my gosh, like so shocking. I mean, you can't do that with like Gone with the Wind. Like great movie, but it doesn't have that effect.
Yeah, no, I remember it being very creepy.
Very creepy. Very creepy.
So I probably could watch scary movies now with my new philosophy on life, on what's real, what's not real, and all this other stuff. The one that gets me is like the spiritual ones, because I'm still, I do believe in I'm not, I guess I would be categorized as Catholic because I was raised that way. But I'm definitely more spiritual than I am Catholic. And I'm more spiritual in the sense of like energies and universe and all this other stuff that you're familiar with, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so those are the ones that freak me out when like The Exorcist, right? What did that come out in the 80s or the 90s? I've never watched it. I will never watch it. If a clip comes on from it, I am shunning my eyes. I'm like, I am not looking at that. That still gets me.
I mean, my dad, I think, saw it once, never seen it again. I've seen it once, never seen it again. And like, I'm good. Like I'm all set, and also, I mean, like all the rumors about people dying on set, and I'm just like, too real. Nope. Like stay over there.
Yep. So something about, I guess, the scary movies for you or the horror movies is more about like the experience, and also kind of knowing that like, all right, everybody's going to be all right in the end. It's not.
Yes, but I will say, I think a great horror movie, again, is that feeling of, oh, it's not all right. Like either the feeling is like, what if this really happened? I could actually see this really happening. Or it's just like like, did you see Hereditary?
No.
Okay. So that's probably one of the best, most recent horror movies. Cause it's such a good movie. Like if you took the horror out of it, it's a very well-made movie. The actors are great. It is terrifying. And I remember seeing it in theaters and like leaving the theater And it was just like, it's still on me. Like, it's just, I need to shower and get it off me. And I feel like, as weird as it is that that's like appealing, I think that makes an excellent horror movie, that it doesn't just lights come on, I'm safe. It's like, I'm very much not safe. Like, humanity is not safe. Like, we're all in danger. Oh my gosh. I think that shows like a really well-made movie.
Was that the M. Shyamalan movie about like where they age on a beach or something?
No, so that, I think it's called Old or something.
Oh,
but
okay.
no, this was Toni Collette is the main character, and the guy, the director did, he did a few other movies, but I think this was like his first big movie, and it's this family, and the grandmother dies, and I feel like that's something to say.
Yeah,
there's so much to it.
We're good. You people can go watch it. I'm not because I just reminded myself of The Sixth Sense, and like seeing a cabinet open freaks me out. I'm just like, who opened that cabinet?
Yes, and you see the silhouette of the girl in the tent. That was terrifying. Oh, I'm never going to the bathroom in the night again.
Such a creepy movie. And after you and I end this call here, I have to be alone in the studio. I'm going to be running out of the studio so fast. I'm not going to be in here.
Lights, turning on all the lights.
I'm turning on everything. All the electricity has to be on. That's another one that I remember from scary movies. I love your passion for horror movies. I think that's really cool, and like your costumes and all this and the experience. I think that's so important in life to have this, as we've kind of talked through this whole work-life balance thing of experiencing different things, of learning about philosophy, of traveling to France, of building relationships with friends and family, and this relationship with your husband, and enjoying horror movies together. And all of this is like work-life balance. This is really like the whole of it, and I love that. And then of course donating your time to the grant writing and the work that you did. And I always love kind of reading someone's inspirational mantra, and for you.
Oh no.
Yours is so funny. I'm like, okay, this is cool. And so your mantra that you live by is just another freak in the freak kingdom by Raoul Duke, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And you said it reminds you to embrace what makes us unique. I love the hidden meaning behind it. I just think it's so funny as we're talking about horror movies. It's like just another freak in the freak kingdom.
Yep. I remember when I first saw Fear and Loathing, the movie, and I like loved it. It's so not a movie I would love, and I loved it. And then of course, I don't know if this is a millennial thing, but like, oh, it's a book too. And of course, like the book was amazing, before the movie. Read the book and loved the book as well. And I just loved, I think just another freak. I think that's the last line in the movie. I forget if it's the last line in the book. And I just love that because it's like we're all a mess, and we're just all trying to figure it out. And at the same time, like, embrace your mess, like we're all figuring it out and we're all unique, and like Fear and Loathing is nothing but weird. Embrace your weird, like love it. It makes you who you are.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's the whole coaching idea is really about that, right? It's problem solving. It's figuring out what it is that you're trying to figure out. It's finding your own solutions, and it's embracing that uniqueness. I love that. I absolutely love that. That's so awesome.
Have you seen that movie?
I have seen that movie, but that was many years ago. And the only thing I'll say when you said it's a millennial thing, I'm going to agree with you, because the boomer says they read the book and they're like, oh, there's a movie.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, oh my God, there's the book. It's so bad, but I'm grateful to say I've seen and read.
It's been awesome having you on. I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. I can't wait to reconnect with you. We're probably going to do another Shining Light together and so much more.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It was great to chat with you.
I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to The Michael Esposito Show. For show notes, video clips, and more episodes, go to michaelespositoinc.com/podcast. Thank you again to our sponsor, Den 10 Insurance Services, helping businesses get the right insurance for all their insurance needs. Visit den10.io to get a quote. That's DENTEN.io. And remember, when you buy an insurance policy from Denten, you're giving back on a global scale. This episode was produced by Uncle Mike at the iHeart Studios in Poughkeepsie. Special thanks to Lara Rodrian for the opportunity and my team at Michael Esposito Inc.